After graduating from Harvard, I developed my career in a global firm, but I made the decision to switch companies in order to increase my leadership opportunities and advance the industry. I half-heartedly replied, "Huh, seems tough," and she scoffed before going on. "And what about you? Are you still leading that stereotyped life at the bottom of the barrel? You've put in a lot of effort since middle school, but I told you that fate is beyond your control." It's obvious that Ariana wanted to make fun of me. The staff member in charge of today's interview entered the office as the door opened. "You're there. The interview will soon begin." "Mr. Overton." Eugene Overton is my name. My age is 32. I get coated in mud and wear work clothes every day. Assume that I work in the construction industry. I labor on site from dawn to night, and the vibrations from the equipment have made my arms and back ache. Although my life isn't very glamorous, I'm proud of what I do. "Hey, bro, did you hear? The heir to Siemens Holdings is getting married." "Oh yeah, that's quite the news. And the bride is someone big. She's the daughter of Kraft International." The moment I heard that name, I instinctively looked up. "Kraft? You know her?" "Nah, just a little. I was born and raised in a rural town. My father's company, Overton Construction, was a small local business that built homes and handled minor construction projects, basically a small town workshop. My father was quiet and stubborn. My mother was cheerful and hardworking, and it was just the four of us. Me, my younger brother Sean, and our parents. We lived a modest but happy life. As I sat at a small desk in the office, Sean spoke up. Ever since I could remember, my father had been a workaholic. He would leave early in the morning and come home late at night. Even on his days off, he was glued to blueprints and invoices. The sparks from welding steel beams and the sound of cutting wood were constants in my childhood memories. Watching my father work, I once dreamed of becoming a craftsman like him. Seeing people happy in the homes and buildings he built made me want to do something just as meaningful. But by the time I entered middle school, that dream had completely faded. I was good at studying in our small rural school. I stood out, always competing for the top spot in my grade. Whenever I got praise for my grades, teachers and my parents would say, "Eugene, you should aim for a bigger world." But there was one person I just couldn't stand, Ariana Kraft. She was my rival in middle school. Ariana was better than me at everything. Her grades were top-notch, her family was rich, and she was always draped in flashy brand-name clothes. Her father was the CEO of the globally renowned Kraft International, making her a true heiress. She carried herself with unwavering confidence and often spoke as if looking down on others. Maybe I was just jealous of her. "Next time, I'll beat you," I said really. "But no matter how hard you try, you can't change fate," she said with a smile, but her words cut deep. I despised the way she talked about fate. In our town, fate had an almost absolute weight to it. People felt trapped in their small town lives. For Ariana, fate meant the privileges she was born with, things she didn't have to work for. My father collapsed when I was in my second year of high school. That morning was like any other. He left early for work, then spent the night hunched over blueprints at the office. I still remember my mother's scream echoing through the house. "Eugene, something's wrong with Dad." I rushed into the living room to find my father slumped against the couch, groaning in pain. Thankfully, his life wasn't in danger, but he could no longer work the way he used to. He looked straight into my still youthful face and said, "Eugene, I'm leaving the company to you. Please take care of it." "Dad, come on, I'm nowhere near ready. I'm still just a kid, and I have school." "Listen to me. You have the potential to be greater than I ever was. Eugene, take over Overton Construction for me." Something inside me shifted at those words. I had planned to go to college after high school. My teachers and the people around me had high hopes, and I, myself, wanted to explore a bigger world outside our small town. But seeing my father bedridden and hearing his words, I made the decision to give up on college. When I told my mother about it that night, she held me tightly, crying, "Thank you, Eugene, but please don't push yourself too hard." Her words carried both gratitude for my father's sacrifices and concern for me. At the time, my younger brother Sean was in his last year of middle school. When he heard about my decision, he looked shocked. The next day, he came to me with a serious expression. "Bro, I can't let you carry all this alone. I won't go to high school. I'll start working too. I'll even sell my trombone." His words stunned me. That trombone meant everything to him. When Sean started middle school, he joined the concert band. Honestly, both Dad and I were surprised. Dad frowned and said, "Why music of all things?" But Sean was more determined than ever. "Dad, I have a favor to ask. I want a trombone." He had been playing the trombone in band practice and wanted one of his own. That was the first time I saw Sean openly express what he wanted. He had always been the kind of kid who held back, watching our faces before asking for anything. So when he finally said he wanted a trombone, I felt happy for him. "Dad, let's get it for him, please." Dad hesitated but eventually nodded. "If you think it's a good idea, then fine." That was the first thing Sean ever had that truly belonged to him. After that, he practiced every day. "Bro, listen. My teacher praised me for the first time today," he said, looking so happy. When he said he'd sell his trombone, my chest tightened. "Sean, that's the one thing you can't give up." "But I can't just do what I love while you're the only one sacrificing everything. That's not fair." I grabbed his shoulders and spoke firmly. "I'm asking you to follow your passion. Go to high school, then college, play music as much as you want. Sean, look at me. In return, study business in college. Learn everything you can. One day, help me grow this company into something bigger." "Bro, thank you." Tears welled up in his eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were the moment he found his own resolve. That was how Sean and I chose our separate paths, while holding on to our bond as a family. I stayed to protect the company, and Sean pursued business while continuing the music that kept him going. Someday, I dream of the day we will come together again and turn this construction company into something great. The day Dad collapsed was the day our fight began. Before that, he had managed the entire company almost single-handedly. My father had shouldered everything, giving instructions to the craftsmen, drafting blueprints, and handling sales. So, when he could no longer work, Overton Construction became a ship without a captain. I moved forward with only one thought. I had to protect this company. But at first, I was completely lost. The local craftsmen who had worked with my father for years supported me, and I was truly grateful for that. "Eugene, you're young, but you've got your dad's blood in you. We'll help you. Let's keep this place going together." I can't even begin to describe how much those words encouraged me. But reality was harsh. With little experience or technical knowledge, I spent every day learning from the craftsmen while working alongside them. It didn't matter if it was scorching hot or freezing cold. We worked through sweat and mud, and when the day's labor finally ended, I'd head back to the office to handle invoices and estimates. As I continued this routine, the realization hit me: things couldn't stay this way. The methods my father left behind had earned respect in our town, but they wouldn't be enough to secure the company's future. The world was changing, and we had to change with it. The first step I took was improving efficiency. With Sean's suggestion, we digitized the blueprints and bookkeeping that my father had always done by hand. At first, the older craftsmen were hesitant, but they gradually adapted, and soon our administrative workload was drastically reduced. After graduating from college, Sean took charge of sales to expand our business. He reached out not only to local companies, but also to major general contractors in the city. "Bro, We might land a deal with a big firm. I'm going all in on this negotiation. Sean's talent for sales was beyond anything I had expected. By emphasizing our strong track record and our commitment to never cutting corners, he slowly but surely secured bigger contracts. Our first project with a major contractor was a huge challenge. Unlike our previous work, the quality standards and deadlines were stricter than ever. But we gave it everything we had. On site, mistakes weren't an option. We didn't just meet deadlines, we aimed for a level of craftsmanship our workers could be proud of. To achieve that, I never stopped working on the front lines. No matter how big the company grew, I refused to become a boss who didn't understand the struggles of the job. I wanted to stay on the same level as my workers, to hear their concerns firsthand and to find immediate solutions when problems arose. That dedication paid off. We gained the trust of major contractors, and the name Overton Construction began to spread beyond just local word of mouth. It took countless struggles to reach the point where clients said, "If it's Overton Construction, we know we can count on them." But no matter how tough the job, we never cut corners. "Bro, our next deal is even bigger." "Yeah, let's stay sharp and get it done." One by one, we gave our all to every project. That built trust, which led to more jobs, and in turn, the company grew. We hired more employees. My own workload increased. I had more meetings, more desk work, but I never stopped going to the job sites, wearing my work clothes, and getting covered in dirt. That's where I started. By being on site, I could understand the workers' struggle firsthand. Working alongside them built trust, and that unity made us stronger as a team. Growing the company was important, but above all, I never wanted to forget the heart of the work. I believed that if I stayed true to that, the workers would feel the same. Overton Construction wasn't just mine and Sean's. It belonged to everyone who worked here. I wanted to make this a company we could all be proud of. With that in my heart, I put on my work clothes again today and headed to the site. That evening, after finishing up on the job on site, I stepped outside the office for a quick break. The moment I pulled a cigarette from my pocket and lit it, a familiar voice suddenly cut through the air. "Well, well, long time, no see." I turned around to see Ariana standing there in a sharp business suit. She still had that same arrogant expression from our middle school days, radiating an aura of "I'm an elite." "Ariana?" Surprised, I asked, "I never expected to run into you in front of the company." "Where I have an interview today." I frowned. "An interview? What do you mean?" "Oh, you haven't heard. It's Overtech Corporation, a fast-growing construction startup. It's making waves as an innovative leader in the industry." Overtech Corporation. I had been hearing that name more often lately, but I never imagined Ariana would be interviewing there. I built my career at a multinational corporation after graduating from Harvard, but I decided to change jobs to expand my possibilities as a leader, driving the industry forward. "Huh, sounds tough." I responded casually, and she scoffed before continuing. "And what about you? Still living that stereotypical bottom-of-the-barrel life? You worked hard in middle school, but didn't I tell you fate can't be changed? But this company, from what I've heard, its hiring process is extremely strict. Only top elites get in a place far beyond someone like you." I almost laughed at her words, but managed to hold it back. Just then, the office door opened, and Sean stepped out. "There you are, Mr. Overton. The interview is about to begin." "What?" I asked, confused. "CEO interview? What's going on?" C had probably overheard our conversation. I smirked and said, "Oh, if the interviewer has to come fetch me, I've still got a long way to go." We led Ariana to the interview room. Inside, Sean sat confidently in his suit, surrounded by senior executives and HR personnel. The atmosphere was serious as Ariana took her seat. Sean spoke in a formal tone. "Thank you for coming today. We will now begin the interview for Overtech Corporation." For a brief moment, Ariana looked confused, And then the real shock hit. I took my seat directly in front of her. Her expression wavered between disbelief and confusion. "You're kidding. You're really?" "Yeah, I'm the CEO of Overtech Corporation." "No way," she said, stunned. I began speaking slowly. "Overton Construction, my family's company, has been handling local projects since my father's time. But my brother and I expanded our business to bring innovation to the construction industry. That's why we founded Overtech Corporation." Ariana was at a loss for words. I continued, watching her reaction. "Overtech isn't just another construction company. Our goal is to combine cutting-edge technology with skilled craftsmanship to create the infrastructure of the future. And you were right. This company only hires elites. But our definition of elite isn't just about academic credentials or job titles. It includes real-world experience, resilience, and the ability to support others." Ariana stared at me in disbelief. "You are the CEO of a company like this." I shrugged. "Back in middle school, you told me that fate can't be changed, but I believe the opposite. Fate can be changed. It's something you carve out for yourself." Sean smirked and spoke up. "Now then, Ariana, why don't you tell us about your experience so far?" For a moment, she seemed dazed, but she quickly pulled herself back into the reality of the interview, albeit looking slightly uncomfortable. We watched her calmly through the whole thing. As the interview progressed, Ariana tried to maintain her composure, but her unease was obvious. After the HR panel had finished their questions, I spoke again. "Ariana, earlier you said you came here to expand your possibilities. What exactly do you want to achieve at this company?" "Oh, well, I want to leverage my experience to contribute to the company's growth through business strategy and a global perspective." "I see, but Overtech Corporation doesn't run on theories alone. People who don't understand the realities of the sites get exposed quickly. If you want to be a part of this company, you need to understand what's happening on the sites first." "The sites?" she asked. "Yeah, and it won't be easy. You'd have to ditch the suit, put on work clothes, and be ready to get covered in dirt. If you're willing to spend the first 3 months working on site as part of your training, I'll consider hiring you." Ariana stared at me, a mix of shock and hesitation on her face. "Wait, bro, seriously. She was mocking you just a minute ago for wearing work clothes. You really think she can handle working on site?" Ariana clenched her teeth. I sincerely apologize for my previous remarks. I will participate in the on-site training, so I ask for your consideration." A few days later, as part of her interview process, Ariana joined the site training. She started with simple tasks, but it was obvious she was out of her element. The workers eyed her skeptically. "Mr. Overton, are you sure about this? She looks like she belongs in a high-end office, not on a construction site." "That depends on her. We'll see soon enough if she's all talk," I replied. Even as I said that, a small part of me held some expectations for Ariana. I knew her pride and competitive nature from our school days. If channeled right, those traits could serve her well here too. However, by the end of the first day, Ariana's work clothes were covered in mud, and exhaustion was evident on her face. But as she left, she turned to me and said, "I'll be back tomorrow." Oh, that's good to hear. As the days went by, she gradually adapted to the site. At first, she reluctantly did cleaning and carried tools, but over time, she started following instructions properly. The workers' attitudes toward her began to soften. One day, she tried lifting a heavy load on her own, failed, and fell backward onto the ground. C, who had been working nearby, extended a hand to her. "Hey, don't push yourself too hard. You okay?" "Thanks, but if I don't do it myself, I won't earn anyone's respect." Sean raised an eyebrow at her response, then chuckled. "You've got guts. Keep that up, and maybe even my brother will acknowledge you." "Mr. Overton, he's strict, isn't he?" "Yeah, but that's because he believes in the on-site work." He thinks the real reward in this job comes from seeing something you build help others. That's why he doesn't acknowledge just anyone. But if you don't give up, he'll always lend a hand. Ariana fell silent, lost in thought as she listened to Sean. Memories of our middle school days surfaced. We had always competed for the top rank in class, especially in math and science. We would challenge each other's answers and even get into heated debates. But there was one thing Ariana struggled with: economics. Ariana is a so-called airhead. She had grown up in a privileged household where maids handled everything, so practical skills like cooking and sewing were completely foreign to her. One day in class, we were assigned a project to sew a small fabric toy. I had helped my mother with sewing before and was comfortable with it. But Ariana, she didn't even know how to thread a sewing machine. As she fumbled at her station, whispers started circulating around the room. Of course, Ariana doesn't know how to sew. She probably has servants do everything for her. Must be nice, not having to do anything yourself. Her hands trembled, and her face turned red, but even then, she refused to ask for help. I walked over to her desk without hesitation. "Hey, let me see that. Your patterns are off from the start, and your thread's running the wrong way. I don't need help. I can do it myself." "No, you can't. Stop being stubborn. Just let someone who knows how to do it help you." But everyone's already laughing at me. If I accept help, it'll just be more embarrassing. Who cares if they laugh? Everyone has something they're bad at. It's fine if you're not good at this, but if you give up now, you'll just prove them right. You'll always be the pampered princess they say you are. I took Ariana's hand, guiding the thread in the right direction and showing her how to use the sewing machine. "Here, now you try. I'll watch." "Thanks." She hesitated, but then clumsily started moving her hands. I still remember what she muttered to me back then. "Hey, Eugene, why are you so good at this?" In my house, we had to do everything ourselves: cooking, cleaning, sewing. If we couldn't, we got scolded. When Mom was busy, I took over. That's impressive. In my house, if I couldn't do something, the housekeepers would just take care of it. Maybe that kind of life actually limited me. After thinking for a moment, I told her, "Whether you limit yourself or expand your possibilities, that's up to you. You can either decide you can't do it and stop there, or you can take a shot and see if you can. It's your choice." Her eyes widened slightly, and after a moment, she nodded firmly. "I get it. I'll give it my best." After that, she slowly started putting more effort into home economics. That memory flashed through Ariana's mind. Whether you limit yourself or expand your possibilities, it's up to you. Then she stood up and started carrying the materials again. There was a faint but familiar determination in her eyes, the same look she had back in middle school. Sean smirked as he watched her. "Looks like she's still got some room to grow." I watched as she slowly but surely improved. By the end of her training period, she came to me with a proposal in hand. "Mr. Overton, please give me another chance. Based on what I've learned here, I've put together a new business plan." "All right, let me see it." Her proposal outlined strategies to improve efficiency on site and introduced new technologies to cut costs. It also included marketing strategies to enhance our competitive edge in the industry. "You're serious about this?" "Yes, over these past weeks, I've seen how tough the site is, but I've also learned how much pride these workers take in their craft. I want to use my knowledge and experience to support that." I stared at her proposal for a moment before nodding. "All right, let's give it a shot. I'll take responsibility for it." Ariana's plan became a new project that bridged the sites and the corporate side of our business. As the results started showing, she became an invaluable part of the company. Once we had been rivals, now we were working toward the same goal. That evening, we held a party to celebrate the success of Ariana's first major project. As we looked back on the journey, we quietly clinked glasses. didn't expect you to come this far. Honestly, I'm impressed. Thanks, but this is just the beginning. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what's next. A few days after the party, Ariana invited me to lunch. The restaurant she chose was in a high-end hotel, one of the best in the city. Today's on me, so don't worry about anything. I hesitated slightly before taking a seat. We had eaten together at company meetings before, but this was the first time it was just the two of us. Once our meals were served and we took a moment to relax, Ariana finally spoke. Her voice was filled with quiet determination. Eugene, about that interview day. I want to formally apologize. I blinked, surprised. I had thought it was all in the past, but Ariana's expression was completely serious. You don't have to. I don't hold a grudge. You had your own struggles too, right? Even so, I said awful things that day. Looking back, I realized how arrogant I was and how small my world really was. She took a sip of tea, her gaze steady as she continued. I graduated from university, got a job at the company my parents chose for me, and was set to marry the fiancé they selected. That was supposed to be my future. But one day, I suddenly realized, why did I work so hard in school? What was I really living for? I remained silent, listening to her words. At that moment, I suddenly remembered something from middle school. Do you remember that home economics class when you taught me how to sew? Oh yeah, I remember. You were on the verge of tears because you messed up the stitches, right? That's right. And you told me, it's okay to fail. Just try again. If you do, it'll become your strength. Ariana smiled nostalgically, but for a brief moment, I saw tears glistening in her eyes. I never forgot those words. That's why I chose to step off the path my parents had set for me and live by my own strength. But when I saw you in a work uniform that day, I assumed you were just following in your father's footsteps too. I was wrong, and that's why I said such cruel things. Sensing her voice trembling, I gently reassured her. It's okay, I don't know how much you struggled, but at the very least, you're standing on your own feet now, carving out your own path. That's all that matters, isn't it? Ariana nodded, holding back tears, and let out a small smile. Since joining Overtech Corporation, her perspective had changed as she saw the way the craftsmen worked and the philosophy that drove them. Working here made me realize what it truly means to build your own future with your own hands. That's why I've decided to break off my engagement. I was caught off guard by her sudden confession. Are you sure? Your parents won't take that lightly, will they? I know, but I'm not afraid anymore. Seeing the people here, I realized I want to be stronger, no matter what my parents think. I'm choosing my own path. There was a conviction in her voice that I had never heard before. Then I'll support you. It's your decision. Thank you. Her face showed no hesitation. Watching Ariana, I was reminded of that fact, and at that moment, I reaffirmed my own determination to keep pushing forward. As we enjoyed our meal, lingering in the conversation, a voice suddenly rang out from the entrance. Ariana. I knew I'd find you here. The moment I saw the man standing there, I immediately knew who he was. A young man in a tailored suit, a sharp face, a luxury watch, and expensive shoes. Jan Simons, Ariana's fiancé. Ariana froze in place, visibly shaken. Jan, what are you doing here? Yuan smirked as he approached. What do you mean? It wasn't hard to track your movements. You abandoned your responsibilities as my fiancé, and I was curious to see what you were doing in a place like this. His gaze shifted to me. And here you are, with a man covered in dirt. That's not like you, Ariana. His words were laced with mockery, but I didn't flinch. I met his stare head-on and spoke calmly. I'm Eugene Overton, Ariana's colleague, and you? What brings you here? Yuan scoffed. I am her fiancé and the next president of Simons Holdings. Unlike you, I belong to a different world. Ariana immediately spoke up. Yuan, stop it. Eugene has nothing to do with this. But he ignored her and continued. Ariana, enough of this nonsense. Stop wasting your time here. You have a much more important role to fulfill becoming my wife. Ariana's face paled, yet I didn't glare at Yuan. Instead, I remained composed as I spoke. No matter how prestigious your family is, her life is hers to decide. For a brief moment, Yuan's expression darkened, but he quickly masked it with a smirk. You talk big, but someone like you wouldn't understand. Ariana needs me. Ariana's voice trembled as she finally spoke up. Stop it, Yuan. I don't want to be just another ornament in your life. Yuan's expression shifted. His confident smirk wavered. What did you just say? I'm calling off the engagement. I've realized something while working at Eugene's company. I found the joy of forging my own path. If I stay with you, I feel like I'll lose that freedom. Yuan stared at Ariana in shock, as if he had lost his words. Then, he turned his cold gaze toward me again. Again, you've been filling her head with nonsense, haven't you? I shrugged off his accusation with ease. I haven't told her anything. She made this decision on her own. You might not understand, but some people prefer to live freely rather than being forced into a predetermined life. Yuan remained silent for a moment. Wait, Eugene Overton. Hold on. You're the CEO of Overtech Corporation. He narrowed his eyes and studied my face closely. Oh, I remember now. Your company does business with ours. Hard to believe a small-scale company like yours thinks it can stand on equal footing with us. And yet here you are, daring to talk back to me. His condescending tone made my brow twitch slightly. Yan, stop this. This has nothing to do with Eugene. Ariana tried to intervene, but Yan simply smirked and ignored her. Nothing to do with him. Oh, it has everything to do with him. A company like yours should be grateful for getting a contract with us, and yet, if the next CEO was treated with such disrespect, maybe I should reconsider that deal. I could crush your company in an instant. His words were a blatant threat, but I remained unfazed. I met his gaze calmly and replied, Crush us. Be my guest. But before you do, you should consider how that decision will impact your own company. What did you just say? I took a step forward and locked eyes with him. You act like you hold all the power, but in reality, your company isn't as invincible as you think. There are always consequences. I replied with a smile. That might be true. Yuan shut his mouth, narrowed his eyes, and glared at me. Beside him, Ariana looked at me with fear in her eyes. Eugene, are you really okay? I turned to Ariana and gave her a firm nod. I'm fine. Protecting our employees is part of my job as CEO, and if it means supporting your choice, I'll do whatever it takes. Yuan, unable to hide his frustration, raised his voice. You've got some nerve. I don't care if it's for your employees or whatever, but don't think for a second that a small fry like you can stand against me. I smiled, letting his words roll off me, and replied calmly. I'm not standing against you. I'm simply protecting the path we need to take, no matter who stands in the way. Yuan glared at me for a while, then suddenly let out a cold chuckle. Fine. Do as you please. But Ariana, someday you'll realize just how much you're giving up by rejecting me. Just as Yan sneered and threw those words at Ariana, a deep voice echoed from behind. Mr. Overton, it's always a pleasure. Turning around, I saw him. Yuan's father, Mr. Simons, the current chairman of Simons Holdings. Unlike Yuan, he carried an air of authority while still maintaining a calm demeanor. Yet in his eyes, there was a sharp glint of discipline. Mr. Simons extended his hand for a handshake, and as I took it, he enclosed mine within both of his. I sincerely apologize for the rudeness my son has shown you today. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Yuan's face twisted with shock and confusion as he interjected. Dad, why the hell are you apologizing to someone like him? This small company is nothing to us, isn't it? Mr. Simons shot him a stern look and barked, You fool. The room fell silent. Yuan, overwhelmed, was left speechless. You have no idea about the current state of our company. Have you ever even bothered to research how crucial Overtech Corporation is to us? Yuan's face contorted in confusion. Crucial? What do you mean? Mr. Simons let out a heavy sigh and continued in a firm voice. Overtech Corporation manufactures the ultra-precision ceramic valves used in 90% of our products. Without these components, our products would lose both their durability and reliability. Ceramic valves. Mr. Simons took a step forward, his voice growing even firmer. That's right. These components were developed with maximum functionality in mind, drawing from Mr. Overton's extensive experience in the construction industry. They are manufactured with extremely delicate technology that no other company can replicate. Without Mr. Overton's company, our production lines would come to a near halt, and you were willing to cut them off just because of your personal feelings. Yuan's face turned pale, and he was at a loss for words. To disregard such a critical business partner. Apologize to Mr. Overton immediately. Though his face twisted in frustration, Yuan stepped forward and stood before me. I'm sorry. Seeing him like that, I responded calmly. Apologies aren't necessary. Let's just end this discussion here. To be honest, I was already considering reevaluating our contract with you. Mr. Simon's face instantly went pale. Mr. Overton, please, anything but that. If we lose our contract with Overtech Corporation because of our mistakes, it will have a serious impact on Simons Holdings' future. He clung to me desperately, pleading. I will take full responsibility. Please allow us to continue our contract as it is. I stared at Mr. Simons, pretending to think for a moment before speaking. Continuing the contract is possible. However, I have one condition. Mr. Simons looked at me even more intently, nodding with a serious expression. Please, name it. If it is within our power, we will do whatever it takes. I cast a glance at Yuan, my gaze cold as I quietly stated my terms. Yuan and Ariana's engagement must be officially annulled. Silence fell over the room once again. Yuan's face twisted in shock as he shouted, What? There's no way I can accept such a condition. Mr. Simons raised a hand to silence him and spoke quietly. Be quiet, Yuan. Mr. Simons turned back to face me, met my gaze once more, placed a hand over his chest, and spoke. Understood. I will personally ensure that the engagement is annulled. If I do so, will you continue the contract? I gave a slight nod. As long as that is upheld, I intend to continue doing business as usual. Mr. Simons let out a deep breath and expressed his gratitude once again. Though Yuan looked dissatisfied, he had no choice but to leave with his father. Ariana looked up at me with concern and asked hesitantly, Eugene, was this really the right decision? I gave her a reassuring smile and answered, I couldn't just stand by and let you remain unhappy. Besides, in business, negotiations like this are only natural. Relief and gratitude filled Ariana's eyes as she gently took my hand. After the incident, Yuan continued to face harsh reprimands from his father, Mr. Simons. Eventually, he was stripped of his position as heir and reassigned as a regular employee at one of Simons Holdings' regional factories. Rumors later spread within the company that he finally understood his own shortcomings after experiencing the harsh realities of on-site work. Meanwhile, Overtech Corporation continued to thrive. Its advanced technology and integrity earned recognition, securing a massive contract with a leading international aerospace manufacturer. The ultra-precision ceramic valves proved their worth in the aviation sector, rapidly increasing Overtech's presence in the global market. As a result, the company recorded its highest revenue in history, solidifying its position in the industry. Amidst these successful days, one day Ariana suddenly called me out. The meeting place was a small park along the path we used to take to school in middle school. The setting sun painted the park in warm hues, and a gentle breeze rustled through the air as Ariana stood there, looking slightly nervous. "Eugene, I'm sorry for calling you out like this. There's something I really need to talk to you about." Sensing something unusual in her demeanor, I gave a small chuckle in response. "What's with the formal tone? The whole thing with Yuan is already over, isn't it?" "It's not about that." Ariana took a deep breath, then looked me straight in the eyes. "I've always liked you, Eugene." Her unexpected words made me stop breathing for a moment. "What?" Ariana blushed slightly and gave a shy smile. "Back then, when you taught me how to sew, I was moved by how kind you were. I had never met someone who treated me with such warmth. From that moment on, I couldn't help but keep my eyes on you. But I didn't have the confidence to say anything." Her words carried all the feelings she had bottled up over the years. "Even when my engagement to Yuan was decided, deep down, you were always in my heart. But I felt like I had no right to say anything." Listening to her, I let out a small smile. How was I supposed to know that? "You should have told me sooner." "I'm sorry, but now I can finally say it. I want to be by your side, Eugene." Her eyes were steady, filled with unwavering resolve. After a brief silence, I smiled and responded with, "You saying that? I really can't think of a reason to say no." Ariana's eyes widened in surprise, but then her face lit up with joy. "Really?" I nodded and took her hand in mine. "I've always had my eyes on you too. Back in middle school, I think I mostly saw you as a rival. I didn't want to lose to you, but when we were making that toy together, seeing how determined and hardworking you were, I realized I started to care about you in a different way." Even though Ariana's eyes were watering, she had a radiant grin. We silently vowed to walk into the future together as the sunset cast our shadows across the earth. Over time, what we initially believed to be merely a conflict of wills evolved into something far more profound, a bond that ultimately came together in the face of extreme adversity. In certain situations, the majority of individuals believe there is no path ahead. It's okay to rely on someone and take a break at certain times. However, fate may be altered. Ariana and I are going to take control of our destiny together from now on. We'll make progress toward a brighter tomorrow.